YouTube's AI told me to make this video because there was very high interest, so let's get into it. Today I'm going to go over the top
13
accessories and modifications that you should do to your John Deere 2025 and also give you some of the ones that you can avoid. Learn from my mistakes and keep the money in your pocket. Now, specifically, I did say accessories and modifications. I did not say attachments. There are other people better to do attachments. Your yard's gonna be different. I really only have two attachments, the backhoe and the wood chipper. And if I did a review on that and your yard looks like this, you don't care what I have to say. I'm talking specifically about the machine, the one that we all get and receive from the dealer. So enough jibber jabber. Let's start in the front and go to the back, which is the proper way of doing things. First things first, before we even get started, before you even sit in the driver's seat, make sure you order a set of pallet forks. This discussion is a non-starter. For less than $1,000, you can get, I mean, look, they're on there now. The most versatile, the most helpful, and it was stupid that I didn't just buy these in the package with, buying the tractor itself. These are additional add-ons. These are from Titan. They are fantastic. I find 1,001 uses for them. Even my neighbors will call me, like say they get an appliance or something delivered and, they charge you extra for tailgate delivery. John, you available? Yup. And we'll scoop it off with the 2025, save them a couple bucks. These things are handier than a pocket on a shirt. Now, I did say in the beginning, learn from my mistakes. Here's a good one. Don't get the 42-inch forks. This was one of the dumber decisions that I made. I thought, I don't need it. No, couple reasons. First one, pallets are 48. Just get the 48-inch. I find that these are, sometimes they're outgunned by what I'm asking them to do. And the second reason, it's a bit more practical. When you're sitting in the seat, you can't see the tips of these. There's just, the angle is wrong when they're flat. You end up coming off the seat to kind of look to see where you're at. It just stinks. Do yourself a favor, save up a little bit of extra money or just have them throw it in the package and get the 48s. Don't get 42s. Dumb call. But get yourself some forks. So while we're in the front here, we might as well talk about the lowly old bucket. I shouldn't say it's lowly. It's a good bucket. There's nothing wrong with the bucket, but straight out of the box, it needs a little help. Some of the modifications that I did to the bucket were up top here. If you notice, I added the 2-inch receiver on the top, which is handier than handy can be. In comparison to the forks, which also has a 2-inch receiver, the fact that this is on the top of the bucket makes it a lot easier to kind of lift things. That doesn't make any sense. I don't have to put the receiver up as high with this setup, but you do have to be mindful of the lip here. So it depends on your usage. I really like it. I think this is, and I use this 2-inch receiver far more than I do on the forks. On the other hand, if you notice, I have a set of lifting rings here, chain binder hooks here, lifting, and there's also a lifting hook here. I don't know if that's what they're called. Those I never use. And I'll be honest with you, with this tractor, it was a complete and utter waste of money. I'm afraid of torquing things. This isn't a front end loader. This isn't a Bobcat. And I thought it would be a really good idea to get these and, kind of lift and torque, and perhaps you might have an angle. And once I put it on, and I've used this machine for a couple of years now, I would never do that. I'm afraid of torquing something, either the bucket itself, which would be the best case, or the loader arms or something. I'd never use them. I'm scared to use them, and I wouldn't recommend you buying them. There's just no reason for it. This one is a little bit of an exception. I did use this one in the center as kind of a backing plate for the 2-inch receiver, but again, you can't really go torquing on this thing. You'll bend stuff. So if you noticed on the forks, I have the chain set up dead center, so it distributes the weight on both lifting arms. That's the overwhelming majority of the way that I lift things out. I don't use any of these. If you're thinking about it, at least on this tractor, with the 120R front end loader, I wouldn't even waste my money getting these things. Unless you have a specific use case, I think for the general population, that was a kind of a waste of money. The next modification as we go from front to back is this stupid thing right here. I can't tell you how many times I have to get the key out and put it in here. This is just a dumb idea. I mean, unless you live in a high crime area, keep it engaged because, you know, God forbid anyone couldn't just figure out putting a stick in there to pop your hood. So to overcome that, entrepreneurial people in the third-party market, because Deere doesn't offer anything, just offer a simple push button. They just stick on, you push them on. It's like $15 for a plastic one or $30 for an aluminum one. And you just push the button and you have access to opening up your hood. And I'm gonna go ahead and order this and probably have it by the time you see this video because I hate this. Even though we kind of moved backwards to frontwards, I figure we're here, we might as well talk about it. Here is a dumb thing that I saw on Facebook. I thought it would be a good idea. It turned out it wasn't. I ordered these magnets to cover up the grease ports on the front end loader. And the guy that I saw him, you know, painted them up real nice and made it look real nice. But what I found is they often end up like this. The magnets aren't strong enough. It's not really doing anything. And I end up, especially, you know, driving through the woods, knocking them off. Luckily in the pack there was more of them, but as these fall off and are strategically or unstrategically distributed all across my property, I will not replace them. Again, I get the idea, but there are millions of grease zerks all over construction sites all over the world that aren't protected. This is an L. That said, if you really are interested in covering up your grease zerks, you work in a salty or disgusting environment for whatever reason, I don't cast dispersions. There is a better option, a plastic slip-in version that kind of compress fits into that, and I'll leave a link for that down below. The next modification or accessory I think you should get, this isn't really a modification, this would be more of an accessory, is a front axle vent. This one I have made by Otis Innovations. I have a video on putting it on. Cheap insurance for blowing out your hub seals. I don't know why this isn't factory. It's kind of dumb, but for $100, it's cheap insurance for blowing out your hubs and draining all your fluids all over. Just buy this. Just buy it. You need it. Just buy it. The next modification or accessory that I believe that you should get to your 2025, and I'm sure the comment section is going to correct me, so let me just jump right in front of that. I believe this piece of advice has been rendered obsolete by factory options, but if you're like me, LED lights. I have LEDs in the front and on both sets of work lights. I don't have any lights in the rear. But if you're doing any work at dusk or dawn or in the dark, these LED aftermarket lights don't just look cool, they blow the factory headlights out of the water. There is a marked difference. As you can imagine here, when the sun goes down, it's very, very dark. I need as much light as I could possibly get, and these do the job exactly like I'm looking for. Again, I think Deere started putting LED lights in, I think after 2023, I'm not really sure. But if you have one like me where you're still using the old halogen joints, please do yourself a favor and get these. Now the next modification or accessory is for all my chainsaw dogs out there. Shout out, dogs. Despite the size of this machine, there is a dearth of adequate, safe storage for your chainsaws. I don't necessarily use the bucket. I'm using the forks to lift wood. So you got to get yourself a saw haul, man. It's really, you tear your jeans up, you tear the foreplate up. That's if you don't hurt yourself or the saw carrying it around. I do not have one. And it's not because I don't want one, it's because I want to make my own. That's just how I roll. I'm gonna take one weekend and just kind of fashion one up with some big bolts or something. I don't know. I want to make my own and install it. If you're not a DIY type, go ahead and get yourself a saw haul, because carrying the saw around as you're driving is whack. It's no good. Move on. There's a commercially available option. Of course there is. And I can't recommend that you get one enough. So as we get up into the cab area, the seat, the world is your oyster. But to me, there are a couple things that you have to do. Number one, you need a knob. Listen, you're gonna be wheeling this thing like a bank robber. You need to get yourself a knob. I wouldn't run a tractor without it. When it first got here, it didn't have it. And I said, no, you need a knob. Get yourself a knob, makes life easier. Second thing, you need a seat cover. Dog, you don't know what condition you're gonna be operating in. You don't know what condition you're gonna be in. Protect your investment. If you notice there's a theme, there's a theme going on. Protecting your stuff is one of them. This, this seat cover doesn't know me anything. It's been sweat on, bled on, grease, oil, the works. it doesn't owe me anything. And I don't know how much it cost, but it was worth every single penny. Fantastic. Keep your stuff looking nice. And it matches the colors and whatnot. It's not a bad deal. The only other thing that I would talk about and recommend up here is a diff lock pedal. For some reason, these machines don't come with a diff lock pedal. I did not buy one. However, I want one. What I want to do, just like the saw haul, I'm going to combine my dumb hobbies, tractoring and melting metals, and I'm thinking about casting and, kind of making my own. The diff pedal isn't one of those things that I use a lot, really ever. But when you do need it, generally you're in the thick of it. So in that case, you're probably wearing big heavy boots and you might not get the proper foot gription that you might need on the existing little stud, and you need to get yourself a diff pedal just to make life a little bit easier. There are a number of different ones available from different manufacturers, and any of them will be better than just the stem of metal that comes out from the differential that comes from the factory. Thanks, John Deere. So as we move from the operator station back here, about to set the internet on fire. We know that these machines are tippy and they're a little anemic in the front end without some ballast in the rear end. Now you can go with either wheel weights as an accessory, weighted tires, or filled tires. I went with rim guard because it's the best. And because we're tippy and we need the weight, I went with 4-inch Stahl Bora steel wheel spacers. I went with the steel for one main reason, is that if we're going to bolt something onto the back here, we might as well have the most amount of weight, and these are significantly heavier than the anodized aluminum ones. Yes, there's a little bit more prep work by painting them before you install them, but to me that was no big deal. You absolutely need to get spacers on this machine. So as far as ballast is concerned, right here at the wheels, I recommend that you go with all three. Wheel weights, wheel spacers, and loaded wheels. Plus you'll have to get your own bracketry and extra ballast weights in the back. But I use the hoe for mine, so I don't have it. So I don't have any extra bracketry. And yes, you heard me correctly. I am now an advocate, no question, for wheel spacers. I recognize that this discussion will go on forever about snapping your axles or any number of the other bad things that could happen according to the internet. But if you ask me 10 times, if you ask me 100 times, if you ask me 1,000 times, I'm going to tell you, get wheel spacers on this machine. The performance between not having them and having them is so worth it. Your safety is worth the couple $100, don't get me wrong, that it is to install them, but mainly safety. You can't put a price tag on safety, and I ran the machine for 2 years without them. I ran the machine for roughly 2 years with them, and I would never, ever, ever try to run this machine without wheel spacers. And now I know I said I wasn't going to be talking about attachments, and I'm not really talking about attachments. I'm talking about an accessory for an attachment. If you have a backhoe, you need a thumb. There's no two ways about it. I ran for a couple of months when I first got the machine without a thumb, and I do a lot of logging and lifting and trying, and there was chains and whatnot. Skip all that. I went ahead and built my own thumb, but you could just as easily, if you're not a DIY type, again, you can buy one. The BX expanded one seems like a relatively good option for folks. A lot of people like it. To me, if you have a backhoe, why not get the fullest capabilities out of it? Get yourself a thumb. It doesn't need to be the hydraulically actuated one, and that is my opinion. Why is that my opinion? This isn't an excavator. It's not, it doesn't have such extreme forces that you're gonna be clamping on something so hard. You would max the attachment out before you really needed it. So in my case, I've pulled white oak or red oak or oak out with just using the clamping force between the bucket and the thumb. I don't see, with the added expense and kind of sophistication that comes along with it, in needing a hydraulic thumb. To me, a manual thumb is the way to go, and it's probably your best option. You'd max this thing out before you really needed that kind of squeezing force. But you need a thumb. So on the very first video I made about this tractor, I kind of complained about how useless it was out of the box. Now I got quite a few years under my belt. So today we just went through all of the things that I've done to make this thing much, much more useful. However, this list is not comprehensive. What are some of the things that I missed? Go ahead, leave a comment. Tell me, what'd you miss? Oh, you're an idiot. Also, if you'd like to call me an idiot for any of my opinions, please go ahead. I could use the engagement. Otherwise, I think that's it. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I will catch you on the next one. Goodbye.